Hello and what is up YouTube? My name is G3Iron and welcome to today's discussion where we're going to be taking a look at the balance manifesto related to curses for the upcoming 320 Forbidden Sanctum League. If it's been a while since you've checked in on the news here on this channel, we are back and playing some Path of Exile. So you can of course like, subscribe, and ding the bell to be notified about future video discussions just like this one. Without any further ado, let's get into the discussion for today. It starts off in the following sentence. Our last three manifestos covered jewels and alignment mitigation, the replacement of arch nemesis modifiers, and eldritch altars. In today's final 320 manifesto, we're discussing changes to curses, specifically hexes, and our goal of making their effectiveness against different rarities of monsters more balanced. All right, so here comes official, more balanced discussion. The too long don't read. I like that they're starting off with that. That's fun. Hidden monster penalties against curses have been removed. Oh. That's interesting. Hexes are now stronger against unique monsters and are at least twice as strong against pinnacle bosses, but are weaker against regular monsters. Okay, well, we don't need them to be stronger against regular monsters because regular monsters die anyway, so that's good. The Doom mechanic has been removed? What? It wasn't that long ago that they just invented the Doom mechanic when they redid curses. Oh my gosh, I feel like it's been a year since I've really covered POE in depth, and now that I'm coming back, there's so many changes. The Doom mechanic has been removed to simplify the hex system. Oh man, that's amazing. I feel like I just read, we're adding the Doom mechanic because we don't feel like curses are complex enough. Okay, anyway. Anything related to Doom has been reworked so that it's comparable to before. The Occultist Ascendancy class has had some stats removed and moved around to counteract some of the power gain from the above changes. Enfeeble and Temp chains have been buffed. Oh, wow. Okay. To aid the changes above, some less accessible sources of curse effect have been removed. This also acts as a nerf to hex support builds. Okay. Hex gems have been rebalanced with the goal of ensuring that self-cast remains relevant compared to automatic curse application. We've buffed a bunch of hex-related unique items and reworked unique items that previously interacted with Doom. All right, so there's a whole bunch of unique items that have gotten buffed. What's a bunch? 2, 3, 5? I think there were at least 5 unique items when Doom was initially released, right? We've also added some powerful new unique items that interact with hexes. Oh my. Okay, for more details, see below. Hex strength against different monster tiers. Currently, hex builds are at their weakest against monsters where they matter the most, and at their strongest where they matter the least. Yes. 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 We said this as soon as Doom came out. We were like, guys, why are you making it so that way we can use curses to blow up trash mobs? And you're basically making bosses immune to curses and hexes. Like, why? This is partly because hexes have hidden penalties which reduce their effectiveness when fighting unique monsters and pinnacle bosses, currently 33% and 66% respectively. It's normal for these monsters to have various hidden penalties, as noting every single one would create a lot of clutter in their mod descriptions. Yeah, but as a community, from what I'm gathering, not having played for the last year, what I'm gathering is players like to know what that clutter is when the monster is on their screen for longer than a second. We like to know what we're up against. When the monster doesn't just instantly die because we've zoom blown it up, then we'd like to know what that monster can actually do to us. If we're playing hardcore or solo self-found or maybe the new ruthless mode, maybe it would be helpful to know the information that a monster and the abilities and its buffs might have, rather than looking at some generic name and then having to alt-tab and switch to a third-party website and read the respective stats that that thing has with that particular. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. I didn't even play Arch Nemesis, and I'm sympathizing with the difficulties that everybody went through. Okay, so hinted penalties. Players can reasonably expect these monsters to be more difficult to fight, so in general, showing the entire list of penalties is not very necessary. However, the penalty against hexes is an outlier because it's much more significant compared to other hidden penalties. Interesting. I wonder what other hidden penalties exist that we don't know about. Are there any hidden penalties that we don't know about that we're just guessing at? That's interesting. That's always fun with Path of Exile. What aren't they telling us that could be? Because it is so substantial while also being hidden from players, it is unlikely to be compensated for during build creation and creates a notable disadvantage for hex builds. We have removed both of these penalties so that hexes will be consistently effective against all monsters in the game. The Doom mechanic. Another issue that we feel undermines hex builds is the Doom mechanic. We designed Doom with the goal of making self-cast hexes more effective than other more trivial applications of hexes, such as the Blasphemy and Hex Touch support gems. The Doom mechanic was somewhat successful in its goal, then why are we removing it completely from the game? But came at the cost of adding a lot of complexity to hex-related mechanics. Okay, so that to me says, hey, it's actually getting more complex and it's getting into the design space for the designers. Like if the designers, if Grinding Gear Games is saying, look, this is getting too difficult for us to design around, that's a problem for the developers. Like, there's lots of things that are problems, but that becomes a priority to problem. Like, hey, we're having a difficult time because whenever we're trying to release new content, release new items, make changes to the passive tree, make changes to characters, make changes to monsters, we've always got to come back to these, hex-related mechanics involving Doom. So that I can see why they're removing it from their side of things. From our side of things, it was always kind of like, guys, why are you hitting curses in this way? Curses already aren't in a fantastic spot. And then supposedly, again, when the Doom announcement came out and the hex change, the curse and the hex change came out, it was like, no, see, we're reworking curses and it's going to be better. It's going to be different. I'm not sure if better is the right word, though. We are removing the Doom mechanic, and as a consequence, we'll be making several other changes to mechanics that previously interacted with Doom. For example, all stats that reference Doom have been replaced with other curse-themed stats. Hex Blast has had its skill mechanics and damage adjusted to account for the loss of Doom's scaling. Impending Doom has also had its base damage roughly doubled to compensate for this loss. We have replaced the Doomsday Keystone with a new Hex-themed Keystone. Okay, so we'll be looking for that on the passive tree. Curse-related uniques. We've buffed a bunch of Hex-related unique items and have reworked unique items that previously interacted with Doom, such as the Fated End unique ring. We've also added some more powerful new unique items that interact with hexes. So there's Anathema, there's Heretic's Veil, and I think those are just the two that they're using as examples. Okay, yeah. This new ring lets you scale your curse limit in a completely different way by tying it to your power charge count. Or you can simply not scale it and put this on to apply 3 curses. Your curse limit is equal to your maximum power charges, which by default is 3, right? That's why they're saying 3, because your power charge limit is 3 by default. 16% chance to gain a power charge when you cast a curse spell. That's an interesting way to generate to generate power charges. There's already a couple of other ways to do it, but that's interesting. I'm not sure. See, we were talking about this the other day on the stream, which, by the way, I will be streaming later on today, using the new machine, the new battle station, which is over here. And I'll release an unboxing video of the new machine here, I think tomorrow on the channel, of me and Mrs. Draconis unboxing the new battle station. But we were talking about this the other day on the stream, that uniques need to have an upside and a downside in Path of Exile. That's what makes uniques unique in Path of Exile. That when uniques just become stat holders, they're just competing with rares, and they're no longer uniques, and generally they're either automatically better than rares, and players just go for the uniques, or they're automatically worse than rares, and nobody's ever going to use them and just laugh when a unique drops. But when a unique genuinely provides a new mechanic, or genuinely provides or unlocks, I shouldn't say provides, when it unlocks an ability that is otherwise inaccessible, but comes with a unique downside, then we as players get to play around and we get to go, okay, how are we going to overcome this downside in order to achieve this new thing that's unlocked and available to us? So that's I like this design. Even if this doesn't turn out to be like the most awesome curse ring of all time or whatever, it's still interesting in its design. I like that design. Okay, Heretics Veils. Here's an example of one of the rebalanced curse uniques. The reservation efficiency mod has been buffed from 20 to 30%, and the level of socketed curse gems has gone up from +1 to +2. Okay, nice. Ensuring self-cast is powerful. In most cases, systems that facilitate somewhat automated gameplay, like Hex Touch applying hexes automatically, should either come at a much higher cost or be less effective. In some cases, both are needed to counterbalance the significant upside of automation. Otherwise, the option to automate will always be the obvious choice and eclipse other more interactive gameplay styles. Okay, I agree with that in theory, right? Hey, if you're just going to have hexes automatically apply around you, then there's got to be a downside to that, right? Why would anybody actually self-cast if you can just automatically cast it around you? I think one of the downsides built in, by the way, is your aura size. I think just to make a brief case for it, I think you could say that one of the downsides of making your hexes automatically apply around you is that it's limited to your aura area of effect of your aura effectiveness, right? So that is a drawback because it means you as a hex-based character or a curse-based character, you've actually got to get within range of your aura in order for your aura to apply. That in and of itself is an interesting trade-off, and the fact that GGG doesn't see that as a big enough trade-off speaks to player power level, that we're just killing things as soon as we're in melee range. Maybe not even within melee range, right? Just within the range of our aura effectiveness. So that's interesting. The Doom mechanic was aimed at fulfilling this function for hexes and is being replaced by alternative, simpler solutions. Simple. Oh, okay. Wowee. We have added penalties to both Blasphemy and Hex Touch supports, which grant less curse effect at all gem levels. Ooh. Additionally, item mods that inflict a specific hex no longer do so with increased effect. This includes items where the hex is meant to be a downside on the player, such as Coward's Chains, Coward's Legacy, or Soul Mantle. Okay, interesting. Hex skill gem scaling. Different hex types are not evenly balanced when applied via hex on hit modifiers. Some hexes, like Vulnerability and Despair, are much more powerful than others. This is because hex on hit monsters apply a hex equivalent to the level 1 version of the hex skill gem. Some hexes are very strong at level 1 relative to their level 20 power, because they scale in a more gradual way with gem level. This means that in some cases, using hex on hit is too powerful alongside its benefit of also applying hexes automatically. We are stabilizing the gem scaling rates of hexes. In general, they should be twice as powerful at gem level 20 as they are at gem level 1. Okay, interesting. That's an interesting way to rebalance the Doom mechanic. Scaling curse effect. We feel that there are currently too many sources of curse effect available. Too many? What have I missed? I must have missed like some major buffs on the passive tree, right? That's what you guys are telling me? I've missed out on the peak opportunity to play curse-based characters? Is that I missed that opportunity. Okay, I'm just going to pretend that's true. This has created a large power gap between players that have no investment in curses and those that have heavy investment in curses. No, that's what we want. No, GGG, that's what we want. We want a large power gap between players who have no investment and players who have a ton of investment. That's the reason why you invest a ton. Otherwise, if you bring those things in closer, then more players just go, well, I'll invest in multiple different mechanics because really there's no benefit to investing heavily in these mechanics versus investing heavily into one of these mechanics. It just doesn't pay off as well. That's how you get like awesome for softcore, awesome, invulnerable or near invulnerable, just blow everything up and don't care about the game because you're super tanky builds, is you can invest in all sorts of different things and you don't have to invest heavy into one or the other. Maybe I'm misreading this. Feel free to leave me a comment down below if I'm totally misreading this. Maybe my coffee hasn't kicked in. I don't know. Which has continually caused us to have the baseline effect of curses to be lower than we'd like. We are regulating the number of sources of curse effect throughout the game. Okay, this just means that we're not going to play curses, though. And then in a year, you're going to go, oh, we noticed that nobody's playing curses, so we're going to do a curse rework. We're going to introduce, instead of the Doom mechanic, the Bazunga mechanic. And the Bazunga mechanic adds an effectiveness layer to your hexes. And we're going to rename curses again. No longer will they be known as hexes. We will call them spooky words. Oh. Okay, this will also rein in the power of players building curse support characters. But a player who takes the time to build a support curse character is playing the game that they'd like to play, having fun, and playing in a party where they're actually effective and helpful. These changes have been focused on less accessible sources of curse effects such as Eldritch implicits on helmets, rather than accessible sources like the passive skill tree. Okay, so we're not nerfing the skill tree, that's what I'm hearing? Or the focus, at least, has not been on nerfing the skill tree for curse effect. The curse effect notables on cluster jewels have been replaced with other appropriate ones. What could be more appropriate than curse effectiveness for a curse build? Curse area of effect. Oh gosh. For example, the one that used grant flammability effect now allows your flammability hex to apply to hexproof enemies and also causes your ignites on cursed enemies to deal damage faster. Okay. Okay. The Occultist Ascendancy class. We have removed the Occultist Ascendancy. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. It's a joke. It's a joke. A little bit of humor. A little bit of humor, guys. We have removed the 15% increased effect of your curses, and enemies you curse have malediction stats from the malediction notable in the Occultist Ascendancy. Okay, your hexes can affect hexproof enemies stat has been moved from Profane Bloom to the malediction notable. We will be renaming this notable passive as it no longer causes you to apply malediction to enemies you curse. Are we just going to call it the hexproof enemies notable? Due to the significant increase in the power of hexes against tougher monsters, the effects of this notable are still very strong. Yeah, that is fair. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh. Like the fact that they're making it so that way the base effectiveness is higher. That maybe that will offset all this. Maybe this is a net buff, right? Maybe it is. As the removal of the hex penalty cannot be understated. Yeah. Maybe that's them saying, hey, this is a ridiculous buff, and we've had to do all these other things to actually try and make it a nerf. That's interesting. The massive buff to hexes especially applies to occultists because they have access to more hexes than other ascendancies. The curse effect removed from the notable, previously known as malediction, has been moved onto the passive skill tree where it's available to everybody. Okay, so that's a little bit like what they did back in the day when they moved minion stuff, at least some minion stuff away from the necromancer, and they put it on the passive tree, and we were like, what the heck? They're like, well, we want everybody to be able to be a summoner. Okay, well, people still play necromancer when they want to play summoner most of the time. And the same is going to be true for hexes. People are still going to play occultist. I mean, like, POE, that deserves an entire discussion unto itself. POE is kind of in a weird spot where they're like, hey, we want to make it where it's a classless game where you can kind of just interact with the passive tree, and then the ascendancy classes kind of give you a buff on top of that. Okay, that's fair, but because of the presence of ascendancy classes and because of the power level of ascendancy classes, it is back to a class-based game. So, like, as soon as ascendancy came out, that just became a thing. Oh, no. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying please remove ascendancies. I'm not saying that. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so we want everybody other than occultists to be able to use this stuff. The curse effect removed from the notable previously known has been moved on the passive tree where it's available to everybody. This is important because while the occultist is still the strongest overall ascendancy for someone who wants to specialize in applying many hexes, it's not mandatory to play for someone who merely wants to apply really strong hexes. Okay, so if you want to play support, a hex-based support, you're still playing occultist, but maybe there's other opportunities to play hex-based builds that are not occultist. Temp chains and enfeeble. The current balance of enfeeble and temporal chains makes them exceedingly strong against normal and magic monsters while being relatively ineffective against pinnacle bosses. For example, a level 20 temporal chains gem currently reduces a pinnacle boss's action speed by just 4%. Oh, that's so small. That's so. Think of that, guys. You get your temp chains all the way up to level 20. You're like, yeah, I got my level 20 temp chains. I've worked hard to get this here, and now I can finally go and take on endgame pinnacle bosses. And temp chains is going to be really helpful. Oh, why is the boss still super duper fast? Because it's just reducing its action speed by 4%. You can get more than twice as much action speed reduction using any skill that chills. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's great. Hey guys, by changing temp chains and by introducing the doom mechanic, we accidentally made it so that way the best way to curse somebody is actually just to chill them. Oh, this is another case. This is another case of hexes being weakest where they matter most and strongest where they matter least. It is. It's a terrific example. It's a terrific example. So what's the purpose of even using temp chains? We forgot. There was no purpose for the last 2 years. Because of the changes to curse effect, we're now able to make temp chains and enfeeble strong defensive options without requiring large investment into curse effect. In addition to changes to their overall gem levels and scaling, we are also planning to increase the cursed, rare, and unique enemies have percentage less X action speed. Okay, modifier on temp chains, as well as increasing the cursed, rare, and unique enemies deal percentage X less damage. Modifier on enfeeble. Okay, cool. Vulnerability and despair. While working on the updates outlined above, we took the opportunity to make some stat changes to vulnerability and despair to help make these gems cleaner. Ooh, make the gems cleaner. Mwah. Clean gems. They are now more focused on making enemies vulnerable to physical and chaos damage in ways that are generally useful for any build dealing primarily physical or chaos damage. We will confirm the specifics of these changes in the 3.20 expansion patch notes. Okay, that makes me nervous to comment on it because they're going to clarify it during patch notes. So if we say, okay, hallelujah, that these changes are taking place, then they might nerf them. If we say, oh no, these are really bad, they might buff them. Oh, okay, so these are clearly really bad, and they need to be buffed. Okay, there you go. That's my comment on that. Hex Blast. Hex Blast has had its skill mechanics and damage adjusted to account for the loss on Doom scaling. Broadly speaking, it does less damage at the very top end of gameplay. I have not heard or seen anybody say that they were playing Hex Blast. Have I just missed out on the meta entirely over the last year? Well, the answer is yes, I have. But has Hex Blast been absolute meta? Like, I don't think so. Otherwise, I think this entire change would be met with like an outrage, right? A level of gamer outrage. Rawr, I can't believe you, GGG. Broadly speaking, it does less damage at the top end of gameplay, but getting it to a fairly decent level of damage is easier than before. It now removes a random hex from an enemy and will deal more damage with hits and ailments if a hex was removed in this way. Its damage is also more consistent because you no longer need to wait for Doom to build up. 2 thumbs up on that. A silly mechanic. Hey, the longer the monster is alive, the more damage you're going to do. Okay, but the whole point of hexing a boss is that way it doesn't stay alive that long. Conclusion. In general, hexes will be stronger against tough monsters and weaker against lesser monsters. We've removed Doom in order to simplify how hexes work. That's really nice. It's going to make it easier to explain to new players. Introduced penalties to automated hex application methods to keep them from outclassing self-casting. And made several other balance changes as a consequence of these overall changes. Please note that the above planned changes are still subject to change in the lead up to the launch of the 3.20 Forbidden Sanctum expansion. We'll reveal the specifics of these changes in the patch notes. Okay, so there you have it. That is the 3.20 Balance Manifesto on curses. By the way, I just got to say, I love the way how GGG is communicating all this stuff now. I love the fact that they're just giving us all these manifestos, and we have tons of stuff to read leading up to the patch notes. Hopefully that means that patch notes won't be quite so big. Like it was approaching, I need to go back and do my word count study on patch notes, but it was like, thousands of words long. For patch notes, which we will do a patch notes reading, by the way. I'm pretty sure we're going to do that live. We'll probably do it live over on Twitch whenever patch notes drop. So we will do that live reading, and then we'll export it over to YouTube or whatever. This is interesting. This is interesting because if the baseline power of curses is stronger, then that means more characters might actually be tempted or desire to use self-cast curses on bosses. Like, here's the thing, and maybe this deserves another video discussion in and of itself, but in Path of Exile, every action that you are taking where your character is not locked into the animation of actually dealing your damage skill, it's got to be worth it. It's got to be doing more for your character than if your character was locked into the animation skill of dealing damage, right? So if you're moving, it's because you don't want to die to a boss and have to reset and redo the entire boss. If you are, moving, including dodging, etc., that's everything avoiding something, right? If you are not moving, then you are either casting, right? You are either casting an ability in order to deal damage, or you might be casting an ability to support that damage, to augment that damage, like a curse. And so in that curse scenario, it's got to be good enough that the action speed time that it takes for you to actually use the curse amplifies your damage for the length of time that you will then be doing damage moving forward. And so it's going to be interesting to see which characters this will actually benefit. I wonder if this is a long-term nerf or buff to Cold Dot Occultist, who's just going to walk around anyway and maybe uses Blasphemy in order to continue to ramp up their damage. That's going to be very, very interesting. I think that would be a build that would be just right off the top, right away impacted by this. Obviously, all the Doom and Hexblast builds are going to be impacted by this, but Hexblast, at least since I've been around, unless something has massively changed over the last year, Hexblast was never some super meta skill anyway. All right, well, that's it for all my opinions here today on the Curse Manifesto. I'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts and your opinions down below. It is wonderful to be back playing POE again, and so I'll be streaming later on today over on Twitch, and we'll, of course, be covering all the news and all the discussions that come out right here on YouTube. So thanks so much for joining us today, and I hope the upcoming 320 Forbidden Sanctum League is the league that a Mirror of Calandra drops for you. Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.